Hi, this is April. Welcome back to my channel. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you know that I enjoy using the Sony ZV-E10 for vlogging. It works really well with the little flip out screen, but I also like photography, and I was missing a viewfinder. When it's a really bright sunny day, I like having a viewfinder. So I was able to pick up the Sony A6600 used for a little over $900, which I know that sounds like a lot of money, but originally it was about $1,400 if you were to try to buy it new. But I thought it would be interesting to compare these two cameras. They're both using the same 24 megapixel APS-C sensor. And as you can see, their body style is very similar, except the A6600 has a traditional mode dial, which if you like to do photography and you want to quickly switch between shutter priority and aperture priority, this can be helpful. You can do the same thing in the Sony ZV-E10, but you're going into your function menu and you're switching your shooting modes that way. The other major difference is the weight. The Sony ZV-E10 is only 343 grams and the Sony A6600 weighs in at 503 grams. They honestly don't feel very different. The Sony A6600, I will say, has a nicer feeling grip to it. It's a little deeper, as you can see. The other major difference is the way that the screens flip. The Sony A6600, as you can see, will only flip up, whereas the Sony ZV-E10 flips out to the side, fully articulates. Super helpful for video. The record button on the Sony ZV-E10 is very prominent. It's red, whereas the record button on the Sony A6600, it's within the grip, as you can see. They do take different batteries. The Sony ZV-E10 takes the BW50 battery. It'll get you about 440 photos. The Sony A6600 takes the FZ100 batteries, which will get you about 810 shots. So I wanted to show you a little bit of the footage that I shot between both of these. The Sony A6600 has in-body image stabilization. The Sony ZV-E10 has electronic stabilization, and it also can use Catalyst Browse software where it uses a gyro data to stabilize your footage. The Sony A6600, it does not allow you to use Catalyst Browse at all to stabilize your footage after the fact. So I wanted to show you a comparison side by side on how these work for video, and then I'm going to show you some of the photographs that I was able to take with both of these. So this is a quick test of the Sony A6600. I want to see how well the IBIS performs, and I want to see how good the built-in microphone is. I'm using nothing but automatic exposure. And I'm using the kit lens set at 16 millimeters. And this is using the Sony ZV-E10 using active steady shot. Let's see how this compares to the IBIS in the Sony A6600. It's a lot more cropped in at 16 millimeters with the kit lens, so you might want to consider a wider lens. And here are some stills from the Sony A6600 and the ZV-E10. They look really similar. If you notice, the color science is just slightly advanced in the Sony ZV-E10 because it is a newer camera. The one thing I really do prefer about the Sony ZV-E10 is this bright red record box on your screen when you're recording. The Sony A6600 does not have that. It makes it a little bit more difficult. The other thing I really prefer about the Sony ZV-E10 is that you can cycle through to an S&Q mode, which I know it doesn't necessarily produce the best quality slow motion video. But when you're on the go and you just want some quick slow motion, especially if you're a beginner and you don't want to slow the video down in post-production, which isn't hard at all, by the way, but I like this because it's so fast and easy and fun to use. Now on the Sony A6600, when you press the record button, you just get that little red indicator there, and it is so easy to think you're recording when you're not, especially with this button being so recessed and not being very tactile. So my final thoughts on who exactly should buy the Sony A6600 over the ZV-E10 is somebody that's into photography more than video and really can't do without a viewfinder when they're out on a bright sunny day, especially if you like the convenience of switching modes with this easy to use dial. This camera came out in 2019 and the technology is just a little bit older, so the color science is a little bit older. I do prefer the color science in the Sony ZV-E10, but honestly, you're gonna get very similar images from both. And I would say the Sony ZV-E10 is for anyone who likes to do quick and easy video creation for YouTube and other social media. And I would say anyone who's getting into photography and a viewfinder is not a deal breaker. The ZV-E10 is really awesome for photography. The Sony ZV-E10 also has what's called product showcase mode, so that you can put a product up to the screen and it'll go from the product to your face seamlessly without having to hide your face. The Sony A6600 doesn't have that feature, but I would say if you're doing a lot of product review videos, this is a nice feature to have that the Sony A6600 lacks. And it also has a background defocus button. And this is just a simple and quick little shortcut to open up the aperture so you can get that blurry background with the shallow depth of field that everyone likes so much. I know this wasn't a very spec-heavy review, but I just wanted to show you a real-world, hands-on comparison of two very capable cameras from Sony. If you like this video, give it a like, consider subscribing as I try to find the perfect camera for a beginner like me. God bless.